Okay, so I'm in the Unity Hub system. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, even though we just created it in one. Just going to go ahead and remove it from the list. I might as well just do this. So what we did was I just hit new project. We're using the latest version. And with the project, I gave it a name, which is Sunken Arena. I'm using the base 3D. We can always use these awesomeness later, but right now we're just building a basic setup, and this is what we're after. And then creating Sunken Arena, we opened up our scene. I've already done kind of a slight build out with some of my pieces, and I don't have any of the collisions or anything in there that's required, but that's okay. I just want to make sure that I was heading the right path and everything's working in the right direction, and we need to do the same thing. So in here, this is a scene. I've created a couple folders. The first thing you'll see typically in here is just a scenes folder with a sample scene. I've created a mesh folder and I've created a textures folder. I'm going to right click to create the folder, and then I'm going to make this for materials. All right, and so here we can go and start bringing things in. So I'm in the mesh folder, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to import new asset. I've output all my assets. I got a couple repeat pieces in here, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and let's just go ahead and bring in one real quick and kind of talk about what we're after. Do a quick base. All right, so here's our scene. Before I put anything in there, what I want to do is actually in the assets folder, I'm going to create, I think I need to do it in here. Assets, actually I think you do it here. 3D object, and we're going to do, yeah, so right click in the actual hierarchy panel. Excuse me, and go to 3D object, and we're going to go and build, oh sorry, 3D object, yeah, 3D object, terrain. Now we'll drag, I think the terrain should be, there it is. Boop, boop. Sweet. Now the terrain's at 0, 0, 0, but that's also where the actual, that's not the center point. What we want to do is go in the negative, I believe 500. So we click that to 500, and then I think we want to go into the negative 500 here. So click negative 500. Now what that did is just actually center the center of the terrain where our actual object is. So if I hit main camera in here and hit F in my viewport, I can go right to it. All right, so there's the center of our terrain, and that's what we want. Since I don't want to have a whole lot of distance so that I can kind of not chew up my resources, I'm going to go into terrain object, and I'm going to click on the actual height brush. I'm using the bracket, the left bracket, which is the closing bracket, to actually make the brush bigger. And this is, set this up to raise low terrain. Left click, there we go. And so I'm moving, camera's so slow. I'm going to undo that last little bit here, and I'm just going to move here and apply things here. I'm going to take off wireframe and just make it shaded. And what I'm doing is just kind of giving me a rocky terrain to start off with and kind of limiting the amount of view distance. That'll help a little bit in my rendering. I've got a little laptop that I'm trying to be efficient with. Go to main camera. And make sure that we get nice. There we go. Cool. This is not going to be the final terrain. I will do something different, but it's going to work for what I need right now. What we want to do is go ahead and bring in our meshes. I brought in my base wall, so let's go ahead and stick that in here. Hit F, the center in there. So we have a real intense shadow, which is because of the directional light. When I'm rotating, I can hold control and get an actual angle snap. So let's undo that real quick and do it again. 90 degrees. And so if I look, and if I click on my camera, it'll give me the play view. What the preview of the playthrough will be. I'm going to click on the directional light. This is like a directional light in any 3D software. It's like a sunlight, essentially. What I like to do here, I'm going to turn the real-time shadows and just change them to like 0.5, so they're not as intense on the ground, even though they're still going to be real intense right there on the back of the mesh. What I can probably do is build up some basic lights and kind of help fill in the areas like we would do with any other scene, but that's not important to me right now. What I want to do is just try to think about how I'm going to make this box more effective. So if I click on this thing, and it's not the actual original mesh. The original mesh has some different tools that we do not have access to. So if I click off of here, click in here, there's nothing selected. I go into the actual imported mesh. This is what the FBX brings in. This is not the actual tool that I want to work with. This is the piece I want to work with, which is an instance of the actual FBX tool. I'm going to add a component, and I'm going to say COL for box collider. We can do a mesh collider, but a box collider will work just fine for this object, and it'll just basically create a bounding box as tightly as it can around that object. Now that object makes it hard to break through. Now what I can do here, I'm going to create a new folder. Out here, I'm going to call it Prefabs. You can call this folder anything you want. This is like a prefabricated piece. What I can do now is grab this wall base. I'm going to drag that into the Prefabs folder. Would you like to create a new original prefab or a variant of this prefab? Original prefab. So that's my new prefab. If I go here, I can drag and drop. I can delete this, and that's fine. I drag this prefab in here. Okay, so I'm lining this up to the